Welcome. This is Kim Ades from Frame of Mind Coaching, and I am the host of Resilience Radio, where I interview guests who are professionals at crushing the tough stuff. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled and delighted to introduce our guest for today's show. It's someone that I met quite a long time ago, and I met her when she was just in her early 20s. Her name is Edwina Kulego. Edwina, are you here?
I am here, and I'm super excited to be on this podcast. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, welcome. You know what? I was looking through my files and I took a look at the dates. We literally met in 2011.
Wow, that's incredible. That was my first job out of college.
So I was doing some work for an organization, a company called Project Show. And were you an intern? Like, just take us back there and tell us what you were doing and what was happening. You were in from Sweden, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Yes,
and you were working with the CEO of the company, and you were trying desperately to find a way to stay in the United States. Is that accurate?
That is very accurate. I came in 2007 to New York from Malmö, Sweden, as an international student, super hungry, driven, and I managed to do my final internship at Project Trade Show. And when I met you, I was in a unique space. I had just transitioned from intern to executive assistant to the president.
Okay.
And I had a year in that role to really prove myself in order to ask the company to sponsor a work visa for me. So I was in a very tough spot at that stage because I had so much to prove and I really wanted to stay. And a lot of it was contingent on this job that I had just landed.
Right. So did you feel like you had to always be on your best behavior? Did you put in more work hours? Like,
Absolutely.
How did you manage all that, the need to prove?
It was a lot of pressure initially, but after a couple of months, I really warmed up to the organization. I got a lot of support from the departments in there. I became very close with a lot of the key people who actually became advocates for me. So it was really important for me to align myself with people in the organization who I could learn from and who I could help. So I think once I positioned myself as someone who could be of value to someone else, all of a sudden I became a more valuable employee.
Well, I remember because I worked directly with the CEO and he kept saying, we have to find a way to keep Edwina.
Yeah, so, that's great.
But you were young. Like, you came in 2007. How old were you at the time?
I was 19 and I took a leap of faith and I moved to New York by myself.
So at 19, you moved to New York.
Yes.
And then in 2011, you decide to stay. Like, why did you leave? Sweden is a beautiful place.
Oh, my God. Now, with everything going on in the U.S., everyone keeps asking me, why are you here? Like, Sweden is one of the safest countries with the best, social healthcare system in the world. I love Sweden, and I had a great upbringing. My parents are from Ghana, West Africa originally, and they moved to Sweden in their 20s. But I was born there and loved it, but it was very safe for me. And I always felt very comfortable. And both of my parents being entrepreneurs, they always pushed me and my siblings to strive for more and to kind of go above and beyond. And I always knew that eventually I would leave. And New York and London were the two destinations for me. And I applied for college at Berkeley in New York, and I got an internship, and that's kind of what brought me to the States.
So all these years later, are you still happy in the United States, or do you miss your family? Like, tell us about that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's been really tough. And, the older you get, the more you think about, your siblings are now having children. You have nieces and nephews, and you have all these birthdays and weddings and all these amazing celebrations that sometimes you're not able to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely, I thought it would get easier with time, but it's getting harder. And now I'm a mother, and I can really, yes, as of April.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a wonderful journey, but, I could definitely use some help from my sisters and my mother. So yeah, it's been tough, but it's also been very rewarding. I've been able to do things I could never imagine, and career-wise, it's been such a great journey. So I'm very thankful for the experience.
Okay, so let's go. Let's take us through your career
Okay.
journey. You were there, you started off as an intern, you became
Yes.
the executive assistant of Project Show.
Yes.
Then what happened?
Then there was some changes in management. We got a new CEO who was a completely different leadership style and management style from the previous CEO, Andrew, who we work with.
Right.
So I had to kind of readjust to someone completely different who really, you know, kept me on my toes and was able to push me in different ways, which I needed. And then after working as an executive assistant with that CEO, I had made a decision that I wanted to move further, either go into sales or marketing. And but I wanted to kind of be in a role that was fulfilling. And a part of me is, you know, I speak 5 languages. I grew up in Sweden, but, you know, I'm originally from Ghana, and I'm very much into culture and travel. So I was trying to figure out a role within the company that would allow me to still do the things that I love, which was immerse myself in different cultures and travel. So I started digging into our international accounts and the countries that we did business with as an organization. And I learned that we had huge potential in Scandinavia and in parts of Asia. So I put a full analysis together to the CEO. I presented it to him and I said, look, we have these countries that we're currently working with. There's a huge amount of other business that we could be getting, but we have no one in the company that's focusing on international business. Would you be open to creating an account executive role for me as an entry-level position, but focusing specifically on international business? And, you know, I was just in there and I was like, he's either going to think I'm crazy or he's going to love it. And, you know, to my surprise, he loved it and he thought it was a great opportunity. And I was basically able to create a role for myself as international account executive working in sales.
So I want to go back. So a lot of people feel like they're stuck in their positions. And even though they might want a certain role or want to create something new for themselves, they believe that it's impossible.
Right.
Right. So what made you think that, you know, you even had a shot?
Right.
What made you think that this was like even a wild possibility that you would go in and say, hey, like, look at me differently, consider this opportunity, etc.? Like, what made you go down that road? What was the thinking that led you there?
For me, it was, you know, I'd like to think that I'm very ambitious and I like to kind of push and try and see how far I can get. But I also wanted to do something that I genuinely thought would help the company. And I think that's what connected me with the CEO and what he was going through at that time, trying to develop a team and trying to develop additional sales. I kind of knew what the needs were in the company, and I was able to think about that and really find something that would benefit me selfishly because I love traveling, but also something that could potentially change our business in a very different way. So I think it's about figuring out kind of a middle ground where you can kind of negotiate and compromise and say, hey, I know you really need this. And selfishly, I really wanted it. So I was able to kind of find a unique point that worked. But I think it's important to just try. Sometimes we get it in our own way. And I definitely had a lot of days and nights where I was like, is he going to think I'm crazy? What if they fire me after, you know, am I being too bold? You know, I was just an intern and now I'm an executive assistant and I'm basically not only asking for a promotion, but I'm creating a role that this company has never seen before. So I definitely had my moments of doubt, but at that time, I was kind of fed up with the executive assistant role. I knew that I had more to offer. And I really think that I was kind of willing to walk if I couldn't get what I wanted.
Interesting. So you were at the point where you felt, hey, I have not a lot to lose.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I find that very interesting because people aren't very willing to be bold, right? They play it safe. And I think people who play it bold, who do have that urge, that desire, that drive, and do take an action that is bold, we need to learn from those people and understand what in your thinking allows you to be bold. What allows you to say, I see myself in a bigger light, and I'd like you to see me there too.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been, my mom actually always encouraged me to think bigger and to always see myself in a bigger light. She always it pushed me to, okay, Edwina, that's interesting and that's great, but what if you did this? Instead of asking for this, what if you ask for this with a bonus on top of it? So she's always been, she's an entrepreneur. She has amazing negotiation skills. So from a young age, I was able to pick up from her. But I do think that, if you don't ask, you just don't get.
That's right. That's a good lesson.
Yeah. You seriously just don't, if you don't ask, you never know what's on the other side.
Okay, so let's fast forward. You are now managing international business development at UBM Fashion.
Yes.
So what is UBM Fashion? What does that even stand for?
United Business Medium. So we actually went through a transition and acquisition. So UBM came in and purchased a bunch of shows, Project being one of them.
I see. Okay.
And now we actually just got acquired again by the largest trade show producer in the world called Informa. So we are no longer UBM. We're actually Informa now, as of a couple of months ago. So, I've been through a lot of acquisitions, mergers, and changes within the company. But I was able, again, to use my experience from working in international business. And I teamed up with my competitor, actually, who we ended up acquiring from a competitive trade show. I teamed up with one of their international business members, and we decided to create the first international business development department in the company.
Wow.
So we were, again, in a unique position to create something new, and we're running the team now, and it's been a great experience.
Incredible. And you started your own company on top of that. I did.
On top of that. So that was another tough time in corporate, where I think I was about maybe 5 months in. And again, I felt this need of doing more, and after work I would attend events and connect with people and have conversations, and the conclusion was always that I wanted to do something on my own, but I had such a fear of doing something entrepreneurial with having a corporate job. What are they going to say? What are people going to think? And again, I had to kind of get to that position where I was like, I know I can do both. And as long as what I'm doing doesn't conflict with my corporate job, I should be able to have, a passion project or to have something else going on for me after those 8 hours in the office. So
tell us about your company.
My company is called Essentials by Edwina. And it started with the goal of providing positive solutions for women. And I grew up in my mother's salon. I've always been a huge fan of the beauty industry and just making women feel beautiful. And I was presented with a unique opportunity to partner with Selfie Cosmetics, which is a women's own cosmetics business based here in New York, to create a line of vegan lipsticks for women.
Wow.
So that has been going on for about 2.5 years now. And I really wanted to create something that was healthy, but also really beautiful. And I over the past year, I've been focusing on finding colors for an underrepresented woman in beauty, which is the woman of color. So we launched a collection of nude lipsticks for women of color, because we all know that nudes come in different colors, but we don't always find that variation in beauty supply stores or big chains like a Sephora. So that has been really successful. And I think, again, we were able to create something that was needed in the market.
So an executive in a prominent show company.
Yes.
You're an entrepreneur and a mom. Looking back, what was your greatest adversity?
Wow, good question. I think my greatest adversity was not believing in myself. There were moments in my journey where I was kind of threw in the towel, was ready to go home, was overworked. I think overlooked. It took a lot for me to move forward. I was in an environment that was kind of like a boys' club,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt that it was hard for me to be seen. I was working in menswear. I was constantly around guys, and there would be like golf outings and events where I wouldn't even be invited, even though I felt as though I should have been in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I went through about a year and a half, maybe 2 years of just being down and not being able to find a happy place personally and professionally. And I think that once I just started changing my thinking and assuming positive intent, which is um, something that I actually learned at our retreat.
Right. I
um,
remember that.
yeah, it's one thing that kind of that I worked on and then forgot, and then it came back to me, and I was like, look, these guys are not out to get you. They're just doing what they can to move ahead, and you need to do the same. And once I started thinking that way, not taking things personally, I started coming into the office happy again, smiling. I bought flowers, put them on my desk, wrote a to-do list, and really just started working more efficiently and productively. And I think that's changing my thinking was the first step. And then a lot of the opportunities kind of just came. And I think it was because of what I was putting in the universe.
So, but it sounds like you also made a decision that says, okay, like I feel bad, but I'm playing the role of a victim. I'm done with that.
Yes. I stopped feeling sorry for myself. I stopped complaining. I stopped the gossiping in the office. Did you believe what just happened last weekend? There was another golf outing and no one invited me. And it's like, you're not getting anywhere with just talking about the issue. But
Right.
it took a while for me to understand that I was playing victim, because that's not an easy thing to admit.
No, it's not because it's easier to blame the world, right?
Right, right.
So here's another question. Do you play golf now?
I have played golf. I don't do it as often as I would like, but I was able to get my foot in the door, and I took some classes, some
Wow.
lessons, and it's one of those things where you just have to push yourself. You have to challenge yourself.
So you took it on.
I did.
All right. So there are lots of people out there who are in a situation where they don't feel included, where they feel overlooked, where
Yeah.
they are marginalized, where they feel like they don't know how to get their foot in the door. What
Yeah.
advice do you have for them?
I would say, think back on times in your life where you thought you couldn't do something and you did them, and try to get that energy and that feeling back. And, try not to play victim, assume positive intent, and I ask yourself these questions. I mean, I should have asked myself, well, why did I not just show up at the golf outing? Or why didn't I take lessons in golf? Or why didn't I put it out there that I was interested in learning? I'm sure there would have been one of the gentlemen that would have said, you know what, Edwina, I'll spend a few hours teaching you.
Right.
Again, it's about just being bold and trying to navigate and figuring out a way to get out of that situation.
Good. So sometimes we feel small and we feel like people see us in a small way. But
Yeah.
if we look a little deeper, we might find that we also play small.
Yes, we
And the
do.
way we play shows up in the way we are seen,
That is
right? So,
totally correct.
right. And the way we see ourselves will affect the way other people see us. So you also wrote a book.
Yes. In the midst of all of this, while I was pregnant, I was,
Crazy.
yes, I was presented with an opportunity to become an author, and I doubted myself so much. I was like, well, I mean, an author writing a book, I mean, that's way too big. And I've always wanted to write a book, but in my head, that's something that always came like in 10 years time or 20 years time. So my initial reaction was like, no way, I can't do this. And then I spoke with a friend who had actually been featured in the same book the year before. And she was like, Edwina, you're getting in your own way. You can totally do this. You have so much experience in business, so much that you can share with other people. Take the opportunity. And I started reading the book, the volume. So it's called the Better Business Book.
Okay.
And it's a collection of advice and stories from business people, entrepreneurs, people in corporate, different types of business people, where it's 100 people and each person shares their experience in business or advice that they could give to someone else. So in my chapter, I decided to focus on 7 ways to navigate international business for any small or large company. Just having appreciation for culture, understanding cultural differences, whether it's in marketing or just how you present yourself. And it's been so good. It's been a way for me to connect with people from all over the world. I've received such great feedback and opportunities to speak at different conferences and events.
Wow.
And it's just been mind blowing. And I'm so glad that I didn't say no. I'm glad that I was able to get the encouragement from positive people around me and also change my mindset and go for it.
Sometimes you just need a cheerleader in your corner.
You do. That's another really important thing. I think that throughout my journey, my career journey, I've really been blessed with having people around me that have sometimes seen me in a bigger light than I've been able to see myself.
I think Andrew was one of those people.
Definitely. He is my
Definitely.
champion. He will always, I will always look back at my career and have Andrew in mind.
Yeah. He was definitely a big supporter of yours.
Yes.
All right. So now when you look at your life, what challenges are you facing?
Well, now on top of being this busy career woman with a huge corporate job and a business of my own that I'm learning. I'm 2 years in, so I'm still in the baby stages. I have a bigger responsibility, which is being a mother to my daughter.
Right.
And right now, I'm faced with just the balance of juggling it all and still showing up and being my best for all 3 things. And I think that as a new mom, you really don't know what you're getting yourself into. You can read all the books and all the articles in the world and have all the conversations with your girlfriends who have kids, but your child is unique, and that child has unique needs, and you're going to have to tailor and shift things that you're going to have to work muscles that you've never worked before.
Yeah.
So that's the stage that I'm in now, and I know it's going to get better, but I'm definitely in a stage of a little bit of worry, like how is this going to work out, and am I going to be able to go to Tokyo every 6 months and work that show, and how do I figure out childcare and trusting people? It's a lot of different things happening at once.
Right. Well, it's an interesting thing. I got remarried and I have 5 kids.
Wow.
And my kids are a lot older at this point, but parenting is something that is, a topic I'm very, very passionate about.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, for me, the way that I have juggled it all, because I traveled as well, and all of that stuff. And one of the things that I figured out, because I think at first it was a little bit challenging after I got divorced to go, okay, so hold on a minute. Do I need to be here all the time? Am I being a responsible parent by even sharing custody? And on and on and on. Right? Like, you have questions about that. I mean, you're in a different situation, but you always. So one of my personal guiding principles to this day, and it comes to me with a lot of ease, is my kids come first. Period. End of story.
Right.
And so with that, I manage around them. And I have always managed around them. So if they had a big event, that came before a speaking event. Or if I knew it was their graduation and there was this amazing conference I wanted to go to, I would send someone else. Or I would say, I can't be at that conference. And I would be okay to let things go.
Right. Because you had established that was the number one rule.
The number one priority. And it became very easy for me to make decisions. At the same time, I didn't just sit at home and be a full-time mother.
Right.
No, I had a very thriving, active, engaged career. Right. And I did travel, but I only traveled when I could be at peace with that arrangement.
Right.
If I wasn't at peace, I'd be like, okay, I'm just going to have to pass. Right. And so the idea is to start to kind of look forward and say, is this a decision I'm going to regret down the road? And the other thing that I have learned along the way is there are a million opportunities ahead of us.
Right.
Just because I missed this one doesn't mean that there won't be another one 5 minutes later.
You're so right. That's the thing that I get so worked up about. I'm like, oh my God, is this gonna, I'm gonna miss this conference and it's on this cruise. And, I look up to so many of the other people that are going to be speaking there and I'd love to meet them. And it's like, it just can't happen right now. But trust and believe that there's more things along the line.
Exactly. And also the other thing is I learned to get creative about, my caregiving or caretaking arrangement.
Right.
So you just start to get creative. And sometimes I'd bring my kids and sometimes I'd bring someone to take care of my kids or, you just start to get creative.
Right.
And, or maybe you make a shorter trip and you go for 2 days instead of the whole week or whatever it is, right? Like you work around it and you do it in such a way where you are completely at peace with what you're doing, but you never, ever sacrifice yourself.
Right.
In other words, you don't say, well, I'm stuck. Poor me. Never. You always say, I have the privilege of raising these kids and I have the privilege to make these decisions. And these are decisions that are aligned with my values. So you never feel bad about quote unquote missing out because you never feel like you're missing anything. You feel like you're exactly where you need to be at that moment. And it's truly an honor and a blessing to be where you are when you are there. So it's also a mentality, right? It's a way of thinking.
Do you have any books that you could recommend on this?
I don't have any books I can recommend on this, but there is a book that I read years ago, years and years and years ago, which had a huge influence on me and my coaching.
Okay.
And it's a book called, I forget exactly what it's called. It's called Easy to Love, Difficult to Discipline.
Oh,
and it had some ideas in that book that made a massive difference for me.
Okay. I'm going to look that up. Easy to Love, Difficult to Discipline.
Yeah. I think that's the name of the book. Really great book. I highly recommend it. But, it's very interesting because I coach a lot of executives and they come to me typically they say, okay, I want to achieve something in my business or something professionally, or I'm struggling here, I'm struggling there. And if they're parents, there is no question that we deal with the topic of parenting because the way a parent parents will dramatically impact the way they lead. They're all connected.
Right. Interesting.
So in your case, what you're observing is how do I set priorities? Who determines them? What influences my priorities? So you're juggling a lot of balls, right? A lot of balls.
Yes.
And then you need to look at historically how you've made decisions and what the influencer was in those decisions. And in your case, my question would be, is it easy for you to say no?
Right.
Right? Because the very beginning of this call, you started off by saying, I needed to prove myself.
Right.
So that's in your DNA. That's in your way of life. That's in your approach.
That is true.
Right.
Correct.
So if you're constantly needing to prove yourself, it's hard to say no, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Indeed.
And then you feel at odds with yourself with respect to the decisions you're making around being a parent.
Right.
Right. So we want to eliminate. Don't feel at odds. Do what's right for you.
Right.
And you're done. You don't need to prove yourself.
Yeah, you're right.
Right.
You're right.
All right. One last question. You ready?
Yes.
You have a coach on the line. Is there a specific question you have for this coach?
I definitely do. As you know, I've been super career driven and I am now tackling motherhood. Yep. And I'm looking for ways to kind of create balance, which a lot of people throw the word balance around. I kind of feel like you set yourself up for failure when you think you can have the perfect balance as a parent because things come up and things change. But I'd love to create some more stability in my life right now. What would be some of the tools I could use to attain that? Okay, so let's talk about the word balance for a minute, okay?
Yes. So do you ever go when you were a kid to a park and you were on a seesaw?
Yes.
Did you ever do that? And so what was happening when the seesaw was in perfect balance?
You stood still.
Right. Nothing happens. Right? Nothing happens. Is it fun when nothing happens?
Not really. It's not. No.
Okay. Is it good to have moments of nothingness? Yes, but it's not great to have a life of nothingness. Right?
Yeah.
So it's good to like come back, calibrate, catch your breath, and then go on your merry way, like continue the ride.
Very true.
So I am never one to advocate the goal of attaining balance. I'm always one to advocate the goal of being present and living passionately exactly where you are.
Right.
So for you, it's not about creating stability. It's about being present. And so what I mean by that is being okay with the fact that you're not going to go to every event, that you're
Right.
going to miss things,
Yeah.
and that's okay. And that might slow down things just a tad, and that's okay too. Right? So it's this whole idea of, rather than creating stability in your day to day, in your processes, like, right? Oh yeah, get a cleaning lady. That will help you. It will, by the way. But that's
Right.
not what I'm referring to. What
Right.
I am referring to is, if your mind can be okay, if your thinking can be okay with loving the journey of exactly where you are, so that when you are where you are, when you're with your daughter, you're not thinking about the 10 emails you need to respond to.
Right.
Or you're not thinking about, oh my God, I have to sign up for this and this and that, or I have to get back to this client or that client.
Right.
That you're where you are. You're focused in the moment that you're there. Your head isn't elsewhere. And that's how you create stability. The other way to create stability is to frickin' love everything you do.
Right.
Right? So, and I think you do.
Yeah, I
Right?
do. I really do.
And just understand, like, you're in a place where you have all the gifts in the world coming at you, and that you're just cherishing every one of them and every moment of every one of them. So creating stability is about being at peace with where you are in that moment, and not feeling the guilt, not thinking you should be somewhere else, not saying I'm missing out, not saying what will other people think of me, not saying if I don't go there, I won't be able to prove myself, not saying, well, this is going to cause a slowdown. Okay. Like, so being at peace, saying, I'm here right now, and this is exactly where I need to be.
Beautiful advice. Wow, I really needed to hear that. I really did.
Amazing. I can't tell you how happy I am to have this time with you, to catch up with you, to hear what you've been up to, and to be blown away by how much you've achieved in these past few years.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you for being part of the journey in such an early stage.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Thank you for being on the show, and thank you for sharing your story with our audience.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.